and Commissioner Jerry Willie. We had a shortened lunch. So that's what we've got.
And some shorter than others.
Yes, yes.
I'm still eating lunch.
I do want to share that with the AOC District 8 meeting tomorrow, I've just been informed that 54 people are confirmed for lunch. So,
I most recently saw it this morning at 50. So, and I passed on an email. So,
yeah, so it's a big group. It just means that the hard copies of the state shared services diagram, I have to print some more copies. So very easily done. I just have to remember to do it. Oops.
Good thing we capture sponsorship, Dave, that, you know, a
Yes.
dollar amount, not a head count.
Thank you again to the Washington County Visitors Association. So we do have a hard stop for at least Commissioner Rogers. And here they are, both Commissioners Bai and Rogers. We do have a hard stop, no later than 4 o'clock, but hopefully earlier. Yeah, no worries eating your lunch. Put your mic
Grand
up.
Central, huh? Yeah. And Chair, please, I'm going to step out at 2:30 after this presentation.
Yes, Commissioner Willie has a business meeting representing our interests in a state level meeting. So we're going to get going on our next topic, Westside Commons Business and Operations Review Project Update. And hopefully we will manage to get through the bulk of both the presentation and our conversation, Commissioner Willie, before you need to depart. But that's on us, not on you, staff. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. Rachel Fuller, Assistant County Administrator, and I'm here with Greg Munn, Chief Financial Officer. I do want to point out that David Martinez is also here. He will be taking over oversight of the Westside Commons as I transition out of the organization. So we have a warm handoff here. We also have Leah Perkins. Thank you. In the audience, she's the venue manager, and also Dave Perullo from the Washington County Visitors Association is here and has been a partner on this project, and actually want to acknowledge they helped pay for this assessment. So really appreciate the partnership there. So the purpose is we're really hoping to have a high-level conversation here about the Wingspan Operations and Business Review. We do not have the consultant team here today, so any specific questions on the operations assessment, we're happy to invite the consultant here or to bring back responses to those questions. So here's what we'll cover today. Very briefly, some background. We'll review the key findings from the business operations review and assessment. Greg is going to talk about transient lodging tax generally. We'll talk about some recommended next steps and then hope to get your input and any questions. Okay, so as you all know, we have a beautiful Wingspan event and conference center at the Washington County Fairgrounds. It was completed in 2020. My understanding is that that was after many years of planning, and it opened in late 2021. And that was, as you also know, right smack in the middle of the pandemic. Okay. So, this business and operations review, really appreciate the board's leadership, given all of the things that have happened since the opening of this facility, including COVID. The board really took leadership to assess the current situation, looking for opportunities, really taking that One Washington County Design the Future approach to evaluate, to assess, and we really do have a unique opportunity here to enhance our partnerships, particularly with the WCVA. And it's really exciting, I think, around the future and opportunity to enhance this amazing community asset. So with that, some of the key findings, and I'll go through these again at a very high level, happy to get into more detail. Given the business model, it may be more effective for this entity to operate either outside of the county system or with an exemption to some of our policies and systems within the county. So to give the entity a bit more flexibility, some more speed, and take more of a private sector approach to operations. Although not anticipated in the original business plan, operating and capital support is typical of conference facilities and is required in this case. It is typically done through a transient lodging tax, or in Washington State could be through a sales tax. The building is still relatively new and unknown. So there really is a huge opportunity for enhanced sales and marketing, both internally and potentially in partnership with the Washington County Visitors Association. And really want to highlight that there is an opportunity here should we get direction to do so, to rethink the relationship with the WCVA, rethink the approach to the Westside Commons, and restructure the current contract that we have. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg to go through some background on transient lodging tax.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington and Board of Commissioners. My name is Greg Munn. I serve as the county CFO, and I'm happy to be here to give you some background on the transient lodging tax in Washington County. It's been a long journey for TLT in the county. It goes back to 1972, so it's over 50 years old today. And over the years, the rate, other than the initial rate that was adopted in 1972 of 5%, it's been increased twice over that period of time. So in the midst of all that, the state adopted a statewide TLT in 2003. And along with that new state law that adopted the statewide tax, not the local tax, it changed the rules on how taxes, TLT taxes at the local level could be used. So given the current review of the wingspan operations that we're talking about now, plus the complex layering of TLT with the fairgrounds and the county fair and the wingspan, my goal today is to provide an update to all of you so that it'll hopefully aid in future conversations about this topic. So, and this overview today will reflect a briefing paper that Ms. Fuller sent to you back at the beginning of August. All right, so a little bit of background on the TLT. The state allows municipalities to charge a fee for overnight lodging for durations that are less than 30 days. Less than 30 days are determined short-term lodging. This could be motels, it could be hotels, Airbnbs, yurts. There are all sorts of things that are basically, if the lodging is less than 30 days, it is subject to a TLT. Increasing TLT rates require voter approval. This is per the county charter. I guess I should go to the next slide here. And I got the gizmo, yeah, but it's only working up there, not on mine. So I'm gonna have to go analog on one and tech on the other one. So originally the revenue could be used for a variety of purposes. There were no real limitations. So the original 1972 5% TLT that was adopted was used to fund general services. And one way to look at the general services is that general services also support the functioning of tourism in the county, general county services. So the state adopted the statewide lodging tax in 2003. Included in that legislation that adopted the new statewide tax were new requirements for local TLT collections, including a requirement that the use of existing TLT must be distributed in the same proportion in the future as it was prior to the law. So if our lodging taxes were distributed, just say 30% or 25% for tourism purposes, in the future, we couldn't distribute any less than 25% of those historic lodging tax collections we had to do at least 25% for tourism purposes. The new law said that any tax after 2003 had to be a 70-30 split, 70% for tourism promotion or tourism facilities, and the other 30% was up to the local government. So this next graphic, I like this one because it depicts our TLT in somewhat of a layering so that you can see how it's been built up over the years. So we have our total TLT right now is at 9%. That started back in 1972 with the original 5%. And that 5%, and then the numbers in red represent the current amount of tax that's collected in each of those buckets. So today we collect about $700,000 a year based on that 5%, and that goes into the county general fund for general county purposes. In 1974, there was a tax sharing agreement that went into place and allowed cities that wanted to participate to share the 5% with the county for those taxes collected within their jurisdiction. So today, that represents a total of about $8.2 million a year, and that's split 50-50 between the participating cities and the county's general fund.
Greg, if you could clarify, we're talking about 9%, but when we talk about 5%, it's 5% of the 9%. So in other words, it's a factor, a little dinky factor. It's not over half of it. Over half of that 9 goes to distributed. It's like 9% of the 9%. So when you're saying original 5%, I just want to make sure everybody understands that 5 of the 9 doesn't go this way. It's 5% of the 9.
One way to look at it is 5 percentage points of the 9 percentage points. Maybe that's
Okay.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 5 percentage points of the 9. Yep.
Yep. And 2, the next 2, and then the next
Yep.
2.
In 1980,
Totaling 9.
yep. In 1985, the next 2 percentage points were added, and those are allocated, as you can see on the screen. 1 percentage point, 1 of the 9 is allocated to the Fairgrounds Fund, and that's for operations, promotion of the fairgrounds, and that sort of thing. That's I'll explain a little bit more about that here in the next slide. And the other 1% in TLT is being utilized right now to fund tourism promotion, and that's part of the contract with WCBA. Those are each $1.8 million a year. Then in 2006, this was after the state law of 2003. Remember, it was a minimum 70% tourism, 30% discretionary. The county at the time opted to spend 100% of it, of those 2 percentage points, on tourism promotion or facilities. And right now that's split 1.33 percentage points to tourism promotion, and that's the other part of the contract with WCBA, and 2/3 of 1 point to fund debt service for the event center. So that all totals up to a little bit over $16 million. It does not include the city's TLT.
A quick question. So the debt service goes to the event center, and that was determined in 2006?
No, that changed in 2016.
Okay, that's why it just
Mhm.
didn't.
Yeah, this is just a current snapshot of where it's
Okay,
at.
okay, thank you.
So that's all about $16 million. There's another $4.9 million that the cities collect in their own TLT. Those are city-specific lodging taxes. We're not talking about here, but I thought I'd throw that up there as a data point. But interestingly, the county has administered the collection and distribution of all of the TLT taxes in the county, both city and county. All right, so one of the questions that's come up is how much flexibility is there with our TLT? What are the options that we can use to spend some of these funds on? So the first bullet point there is our pre-2003 taxes. Again, this is the original 5 percentage points and the addition and 2 percentage points, 1972 and 1985, are before the law. So whatever proportion we we're spending in those areas before the state law, we have to maintain moving forward. So at this point, 1%, 1 percentage point of the 7 is targeted towards promotion and tourism of fairgrounds, and that's in county code. That's codified. 1% goes to the fairgrounds. 1% for tourism promotion or tourism facilities. That's open. That has some flexibility with it, and that is under contract right now with WCVA. And I probably should have highlighted the 5 percentage points as well, because although it's not targeted directly to tourism, there is flexibility. If the board decided to spend that on tourism, the board could do that. And then after the state law, the county in 2006 implemented the additional 2 percentage points to get us to 9. And state law says that 70% of new or increased taxes must be spent on tourism promotion or tourism facilities. And at the time, the ballot that went to voters that was recommended through a resolution by the board was that 100% of that additional 2 percentage points would be committed to tourism promotion and facilities for code for the state law. The code actually reads identical to the rules in the state law. At this point, as I mentioned before, there's some flexibility there. 1.33% is allocated to WCVA for tourism promotion, and 2/3 of 1 percentage point is allocated towards debt service for the event center, and that runs until 2033. So we have about another 10 years there. And then just the last graph here is that any new or increases in TLT must be approved by voters. Covered that already. And then at least 70% of that must be spent on tourism promotion or tourism facilities per the ORS, per statute. That concludes my comments. Any questions on that before I turn it back over to Rachel?
What's the definition of tourism?
Well, we could pull those out of the ORS, but it's tourism promotion and tourism facilities. And there's definitions on specifically what that means and what it doesn't mean.
So it would be wonderful if you, after this meeting, if you could follow up and send that to the board. That'd be great. Thank you.
And bring that back to, what are the top tourism attractions? Three in some cases.
Yep.
No questions, Ron?
Right ahead.
I'll let Greg finish writing his.
Oh,
Go ahead.
So I will actually kind of add on to what your Commissioner Rogers' question is that there's state law on what those definitions are, and then there's county code definitions. They're identical is my recollection, but yeah, and it does get complicated really quickly.
We're happy to provide that.
So can you give me a perspective on where 9% TLT sits in the range of TLTs?
There is a report that was done by Echo Northwest that I can share with you that provides a complete statewide analysis of.
So what is Deschutes County?
Deschutes is, I knew you were going to ask me that. I should know this off the top of my head. It is 9% also, I believe.
And I'm just asking, I'm thinking about headroom if that was something we wanted to do.
any other questions at this point? Because the presentation's not done. Go ahead, Commissioner Fye.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about the slide titled Flexibility and Use of Existing TLT. And what's flexible? So the takeaway is that 1% for tourism promotion or tourism facilities, which is the contract for WCVA, is flexible to amend.
That's right.
And then the 1.33% for tourism promotion, which is another contract with WCVA, it's also can be amended.
That's right. So those amounts need to be spent on tourism promotion or tourism facility.
And then it's also in our purview to increase the contract for the amount allocated for debt services.
There isn't a need to do that because it's already been allocated to fund the debt service over the next 10 years.
So that, then why is it green?
Because after 10 years, there's flexibility there.
That's the-
Yeah.
There's only 10 more years remaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Move on. Thank you.
Okay. So at this point, we are looking for board input on next steps and a thumbs up from the board if you agree with these next steps. As mentioned, there is an option to analyze reallocation of transient lodging tax for operations and capital support. We would want to do some analysis about what that would be based on and come back to the board. We also, there would be an opportunity to begin contract negotiations with the WCVA. That contract expires December 31st of 2023. And again, we think there's an opportunity here to include some clear parameters around selling, marketing, tourism promotion, selling and marketing potentially for the wingspan. And an opportunity there to market it more broadly. So we would, with your thumbs up, begin those negotiations and bring it back to the board for approval. Those are the immediate next steps. Some additional next steps that you will see if you looked at the report. Everything, of course, is connected. So consider modifications to booking policies and or policy exemptions, or creating those entity specific procedures as mentioned before, given the business model that operates out there. We would recommend developing and executing the sales and marketing plan to expand the marketing reach, and then continuing to implement some of those operational improvements. You probably noticed that some of those had to do with staffing. However, everything is connected. So some of what we do there will depend on any type of agreement that we have with the Washington County Visitors Association. That's why these are identified as next steps within the fiscal year. And with that, we are ready for any additional questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Who would like to start?
I think your steps are very reasonable. Again, question on what's the definition, what's tourism? There's everything from parks to you name it. Take a look at it.
Sure.
I like your steps.
Great. We're happy to provide that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers.
I don't have any questions, Rachel. I just want to say thank you for all the meetings you've had with me. This was a new learning curve for me coming on board and learning what has happened. How did we get here? And support. I don't have any questions or concerns. What you're recommending.
Thank you.
Well, I have, I guess I've been getting into this a little bit deeper for a while, so I'm going to just wait to see what comes out of staff and the direction they're going. I like what we're doing here. I think we have a variety of options with TLT and what we can do with that, and certainly with the WCVA as a partner, working with them on wingspan and those kinds of things. So I think we got lots of options that are available, and we'll see what I guess Greg will bring to the table once Rachel rides off in the sunset to the east. Oh, wait a minute, that's the sunrise. Yeah, anyway.
So I would agree with Commissioner Willie. I really enjoyed the report. I mean, it was interesting to contrast different locations and to understand different pieces. So I enjoyed reading that, and I had the opportunity to talk to Dave last week about the AOC District 8, and I was reminded to talk in terms of what all the potential is out there instead of what the problems are. And I think Chair and I had the same conversation yesterday during our one-on-one. So it is exciting to see what the future holds and what opportunities there are. And I think we're well positioned with the next steps to determine what those steps are. I think it's going to be, I think we have to be prudent as we move forward with what our choices are, and really be thinking toward the future, especially when we're in relationship to TLT and how, what are all the effects of any changes that we might institute. That's, for me, that's a big piece. But, we've got opportunity.
So I'll go next. Thank you very much for this information. Some of the statements that were in the consultant's report, I had a difficult time swallowing. But I haven't looked at this October 3rd version. So the one that we'd received previously talked about how everyone knew that a hotel needed to be built in order for the event center to be successful. Well, I didn't know. And I'm a person and an elected member of this board, so everyone didn't know. But also because of my experience on the Metro Council with 2 convention center hotel proposals, I know a thing or two about the elected body having to support such an effort. So, needless to say, I have concerns about properly identifying what class of facility Wingspan is, and therefore what class it competes under. All of that said, I hold WCVA in very high regard. Dave Perullo has a great set of experience in destination marketing. The organization he has built and the resources that he has harnessed to serve the Tualatin Valley well as a destination is just marvelous. We couldn't be luckier. We are very fortunate to have him and every member of the Washington County Visitors Association team. So I am very comfortable with our administration moving full steam ahead to revamp the contract with WCVA to include the sales and marketing of the event center. I'm a little bit concerned about the timing. While the contract doesn't expire until December 31st, our last business meeting is December 12th, which is a mere 9 weeks away. It's on one hand or 2 hands, folks. Jerry. Don't even have to go to my feet. So that's pretty darn quick. Now, maybe you guys are all experts in this domain, but if you want to think about just getting a contract to us and us digesting, having the time, that basically cuts out a couple of weeks there, which I don't envy the time constraints. So, I wouldn't be surprised if you all go through the engagement and go, oh, we're going to need a 1 month or so extension. I'm not adverse to that at all. I want to ensure that WCVA has a contract that they would be comfortable with. I did have a question, and I neglected to air it here. We have a contract with WCVA now for tourism, and I just want to make sure I'm being thorough that in considering a contract with WCVA to market and promote the event center, that falls under whatever legalese, Mr. Anderson, we need, so we don't have to end up going through a full-blown RFP. I can't remember what the answer was on that question when I raised it last week.
We've looked at it and we think it's a sole source contract.
Sole
Nobody-
source, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the phrase I needed to remember. Thank you very much. So I did have one question on the memo. On page 3, under other operational issues, the very last bullet, consider working with the Office of Equity and Inclusion on nonprofit grant program as funding allows. So I wasn't 100% sure what you're referring to on that. One of the most prevalent complaints that I hear about our existing administration of the event center is that it's built on land that was part of the fairgrounds land. And because of the nature of prior structures, prior meeting structures needed and were appropriately demolished and removed. So that has provided additional pressures on meeting space, particularly for what I qualify as agriculture type meetings, whether it's organized through 4-H, FFA, or just ad hoc groups that work to do knowledge-based transfers and skill building and career building in all fields of agriculture. So I wasn't sure if all of that fits under there or if I misinterpreted what that bullet's all about.
Thank you for that question, Chair. Those entities were not necessarily considered in that particular statement, but I appreciate you raising those other entities and that is something we could provide some additional information on. That was specifically speaking to, we routinely get requests for a nonprofit rate. And the facility does not have additional funding for that. And so the idea, the question is, if there was additional funding, is that something that the commission would be interested in doing as part of the overall package? There are sometimes discounts given in these types of facilities for nonprofits. Of course, they need to be.
Yep.
That discount has to be funded from somewhere. So.
Yeah, and we talked about this with the establishment of the initial booking policies and the need to accommodate that. And I think it's a failure on our part to see it through. And I think we need to make right about that. That being said, we also need to ensure that the bulk of the energies are placed on marketing and selling and booking the majority of the time in using events that cover costs for the facility and build the reserves. So I don't know where the sweet spot is, but I do know that both Expo and OCC have figured this out and operated for decades. So I hope this time we will make the most of context there to learn from that. So beyond that, for the move to exclusive or in-house food and beverage, which is also on page 3, operationally, how will that work? Will that be one of those? So it's under sales and marketing, but it seems a little bit more operational.
Yeah, and this is getting outside of my area of expertise, but I think it is, well, my understanding it is some of both. So there's an opportunity to provide that service, to have in-house catering. There could be an opportunity to sell that as a service. So it would be potentially some of both.
Yeah, once again, full disclosure, my experience with contracts and leading to Pacific Wild come into play there. So I do understand the importance of food and beverage. So I just don't want folks to think that all the operational details are totally lost on me at this point. And that we're just giving it away indiscriminately. So there are some concerns I have with regard to contracting that helps build the workforce here and the workplace here that I'm sensitive to. And I assume that with regard to the next steps in moving forward, that I'll have the opportunity to get some further clarity on that.
Absolutely.
Can't get any more specific. I really can't, in all honesty.
Absolutely. As the staff begins to implement some of these, we're happy to either provide a one-on-one briefing or bring that information back to the board, because there are some connection points to workforce development and to staffing that could be made, and that we'd be happy to share.
Yep. So to be clear, I'm full speed ahead.
Thank you.
Have opportunity and money.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for putting all this together. Appreciate it. Well, and look at there. That took us less than an hour. Thank you. So our next topic. Oh, thank you, Amanda Garcia Snell, for being so quick on your feet to be here before I knew it. Advisory Council on Racial Equity Appointment Discussion. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So ACRE recently, the Advisory Council on Racial Equity, we call ACRE, recently had a midterm vacancy. One of the members moved out of the area, no longer works or lives in the area. So ACRE has a membership committee. They looked at the applications that had been received. There were two, but upon further discussion, one of those applicants decided to not move forward due to personal reasons. And so they had one application to consider. They reviewed that application, met with that candidate, and recommended to full ACRE, which voted to recommend to you all Peter Hanley for appointment. So Peter you have information about him in your packet. He's a longtime Washington County community member and executive director of CASA of Oregon, which is the farm worker housing CASA, not the children advocate CASA, for clarification.
Thank you, Amanda. Commissioner Treese.
I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for being here. And it was an enthusiastic response to this potential nominee. So I'm looking forward to working with him upon approval.
Great. And off topic from the appointment, I'm very comfortable, full steam ahead on this appointment. I also want to thank you, Amanda, for your staffing to ACRE. Just last night, Commissioner Treese mentioned that we went over bylaws, and part of that was discussion around shifting the location of the ACRE meetings. To date, we have met in this room the first Monday night of each month for 2 hours. But the committee talked about hosting the meeting in 3 different locations in Washington County to make it easier both for committee members who work and live throughout the community to get together in person, but also for community members to come and observe the committee work as well. Amanda takes care of all the logistics for the meeting. And
We can move it all over.
it's a committee of 15 people. She's always responsive to people's phone calls, emails, and ideas that we have for the community and for the committee. So thank you.
It's also a committee that's still forming. You know, there's a lot of, we're as, you know, obviously if we're just finishing our bylaws. So, but I think from a personality standpoint as well, and you're very flexible with that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Are we all ready to move forward with this? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that'll be what, the October 17th meeting? Yeah. Thanks, Amanda. Well, that brings us to the end of today's work session agenda. Are there any other items that we need to move forward for our visibility before we end for today? Okay, well, you know, we're all going to see one another again on Wednesday and then again on Thursday. So that's it for this day, Tuesday, October 3rd. Thank you.
You